This is a production of World Video Bible School. To God be the glory.
I'm glad that you're still studying with us. Of course, this is the book of Genesis, the 12th session. We are in chapter 24, and this is Isaac's marriage. We have looked down through all of this, and we've been watching the providence of God, and we've seen that He has taken care of His own in each and every time. But the thing I wanted to point out before we went on into this lesson is that even though He has done this, does it mean that there were not hard times? Does this mean that everything was just good and easy going all the time? No, it does not mean that at all. Those times come along with all others, even in the providence of God. And sometimes those things come along to help us, to show us that there are rough times, and to develop us, and to strengthen us, and to make our faith stronger. And so we need to recognize God's working in all things and in all parts of our life. Well, you notice now that the servant has gone off to Nahor, and we see that Jehovah answers his prayer. Rebekah is going to be the one. And we saw also that the servant was a worshiper of Jehovah. Now what happens next? Well, Rebekah, she tells her brother, that is Laban, of these events, and Laban invites him in. He invites the man in to come in. Well, here's a man that is coming from our own relation, one that has gone from us, but indeed one of us. And so the servant retells or tells the story to Laban and Bethuel. And then he wants to know, he says, I need to know from you whether I need to move from the right hand or to the left hand. What should I do, in other words? What am I going to do? Do I stay here, or do I find a wife elsewhere? How do I proceed with you two is really what he's asking. He says, I've come this far. God has obviously helped me and prospered me on my way. And here we are at this time. Well, what do I do now? How do we proceed with all of this? Well, their answer is, we cannot speak to you either bad or good. They see the providence of God in working in all of this, and they're saying, what can we add to or take away from all of this? There's nothing that we can really do. This is obviously His working. It's in His providence. They recognize all of this. And so Abraham's servant leaves immediately. Why? Because Rebekah is willing to go. Now remember, she received some mighty fine gifts from his hand immediately, didn't she? Yes, the nose ring and the bracelets. And so she says, yes, I am ready to go. How about on the way back now? Well, sure enough, Isaac meets them as they return and is pleased with his bride, Rebekah. Moving on now into chapter 25. Chapter 25. Here we're going to see Abraham's second marriage and his death. Chapter 25, the first 11 verses. Here we are introduced to Keturah, Abraham's second wife, the fulfillment of the promise made to make Abraham the father now of many nations. In verse 5, we see that Isaac received all of the estate as the son of promise. And in verse 6, concubines are being sent away and being given gifts. Now you notice it says concubines plural. Is he speaking of Hagar and Keturah? I don't know. I do not know in this case, but I believe this is probably what it is. And he gave them gifts. Now those are not small gifts. These are great gifts. He gives them very much to send them on their way. It is just not a trifle that he's sending them off with, but sends them off with great gifts. And then Abraham himself, he dies at 175 years of age. He is buried with Sarah in the cave of Machpelah, and he is buried by both Isaac and Ishmael. It's great that these two boys get together, men really, and bury their father at this time. We're moving now on into the history of Ishmael in chapter 25, verses 12 through 18. He lives to be 137 years old, and as we knew, he would have 12 sons, 12 princes, as it had been promised to him. In chapter 25, verse 19, we move into now the third major part of our outline in the book of Genesis, and this is the life of Isaac and his family. It's not a very long section. It'll only go here into chapter 26, verse 35. But we move into the third major section. We come now into the birth of Esau and Jacob. The verses 19 or 20 are really just a short recap of Isaac's life, as if he really needed one in this short section anyway, but we do have that. Verse 21, prayer is also now going to be needed for Rebekah, just as Sarah before her. Her womb has been held closed, and he needs to pray for his wife. And she becomes pregnant. And she's alarmed by these movements that go on inside her body. And she wants to know from the Lord, is it well? Are things all right? Why am I this way? What is happening? Well, Jehovah is going to answer that question for her. First of all, he said there are two nations here. There are two children. Two nations. Two children. They are to be separated. They will be two separate nations. Not two together, but two absolute separate nations. One now is going to be stronger than the other. Not that the lesser is really going to be weak. It doesn't imply that at all. It just is that one is going to be much stronger than the other. Not that we have one strong and one weak nation, but we have a strong and a stronger nation here. And the older, or the elder one, shall serve the younger. And that's just a little bit unusual. That's quite really, in fact, the opposite as you would expect it. But then again, this principle carries forward in a way into the New Testament times, does it not? You look at Jesus and he says, if you will be the leaders, you must be, that's right, servants. And so when we think of elders within the church, what are they? Are they rulers? No, they are servant rulers. Servant rulers. You see, they are servants also. And so this, in a way, carries over even into New Testament times for us. Verses 24 through 26, we see the twins come then just exactly as promised by Jehovah God. One is red or reddish brown. That's the word Edom, really. It means red. Hairy he is, being Esau or Seir. And Seir is where Esau will dwell. Jacob means heel gripper. It means usurper, one that tries to overtake the power or concern of another. Isaac was 60 years old at this time. 20 long years they had to wait for these children. Esau, he's going to be a hunter, rather an unruly person, an outdoorsman, a hunter. But how about Jacob? Well, he's going to be the nomad that lives in the tents and moves around, and he's going to be a very peaceable person. That's the idea even in their names. Trouble brews just almost immediately. We're looking into verse 28. Jacob favors Esau. Why? Because he liked his game, his hunting, the food he bring in. But what about Rebekah? Rebekah, now she favors Jacob. Here we are. They both are wrong in this situation. Neither one of these should have favored one child over another. But they both did, and they were the opposite children. That even makes it worse. Makes it worse all the time. Both were wrong. And of course, two wrongs never makes a right. In verses 29 to 34 now, we have the retelling of the sale of Esau's birthright to Jacob. He, being Jacob, has this stew or boiled pottage. And in comes Esau, and he's tired, very tired. In fact, the idea is that he was very weary and weak from hunger. And he says, feed me with some of that red stew. He wants it. He wants it right now. He wants the red, as it were. Now this ties back with his name and everything, doesn't it? But Jacob, he wants the birthright. And Esau, he doesn't count it worth much at all. He says, I am about to die. What do we understand this to mean then? I am about to die. Is it that he's about to die from hunger? Or is that he's saying, on my part, I am about to meet death. Being an outdoorsman and the way I live, I'm going to die before you do. So what's the birthright to me? It could be either one of those meanings, or it really could be tied up with both. But I think what he's really saying is that, what is that birthright to me? You might as well have it. I'm going to die young, is the idea. In verse 33, Jacob wants Esau to swear now to the sale. He's not going to take his word for it. He wants an oath. Well, all of this proves one thing for sure. Esau despised his birthright. Esau is a profane person. Name this in Hebrews 12:16. My friends, this was not a valid purchase, because Jacob was attempting to purchase what was already his. And Esau was attempting to sell then that which he did not own or had no right to sell. Now, birthright, the double portion law, has not been instituted yet. In fact, verse 5 shows Isaac received all of the inheritance, and the others received gifts. And so, again, we see these men working through this, and we see that Esau's attitude is showing that he's a very profane. By that we mean ungodly. Not a worshiper of Jehovah, really. He's really not much concerned with religious things. Chapter 26. Moving on, we have in the first 16 verses another famine coming. History is repeating itself here about 100 years later. Another famine. And again, who are we talking about? We're talking about Abimelech. Abimelech is going to be involved, and of course that means king, or like the title Pharaoh even. The promise is being confirmed to Isaac in verses 2 through 5, and we have two admonitions here. Do not go down to Egypt, and stay in the land of the Philistines, and Jehovah will bless him. So he's being told very clearly that don't leave and go on down into Egypt. You stay right here if you want these blessings. I will take care of you. You stay right here. Well, Isaac is going to now repeat the sin of Abraham. He's going to say that his wife is his sister. The only thing is now, he's not even telling a half-truth. He's just now telling a lie. In verse 8, we see then while he's with Abimelech, Abimelech looks out and he sees her cavorting, I think is the word. Well, actually it means showing signs of endearment to her, caressing her, if you will. And in verse 10, he administers a well-deserved rebuke to Isaac, rebukes him strongly for it. And he takes then a solemn charge. There's a sense of guilt here, and it shows that the morals of Jehovah really haven't been lost even on these people that are not directly involved with Abraham, or I should say not directly in Abraham's family and that lineage. There are others that can still remember these things that Jehovah had sent all the way back to the time of Noah. And so we have this memory here, but also there might be the memory of the father doing this very same thing, telling a lie also in this court. Don't know. Well, Isaac is blessed, and he's blessed, and he's blessed. It just keeps coming to him over and over and over. Jehovah is blessing him. What happens to these people around him then? The natural thing that happens when you have worldly people, they become jealous. They become jealous of everything that he has. And so he goes on, and he is more prosperous, and he is more prosperous, and he is more prosperous. In fact, the idea is that he becomes richer and richer, very great in prosperity. And of course, the envy follows. Well, what follows this? Revenge. Fill in the wells. Fill in the wells. So, Abimelech comes to him, and what's his response? Flattery. You are much mightier than we. Oh, you are so great. And then he also shows ungraciousness. Go away from us. You're so great. You're so rich. Just go ahead and leave us alone. My friend, how many times do we want troubles to just go away? At work, in the family, in the church. You see, Abimelech just wanted all these troubles to go away. Is that the way it should be with you and me? Should they just let them go away? No, we should handle them, and handle them quickly. The sooner you handle a problem, really, not only is it settled sooner, but it doesn't have the opportunity to grow way out of bounds, to get out of control. How many times in your life, how many times in my life, could a large problem been solved when it was a very small problem? But we think just like the world, do we not, in many things? I don't really want to confront the problem. I really just kind of want it to go away. I might hurt their feelings. We give all of these reasons, don't we? And we're wrong. We need to handle the little things when they come up, then they won't be big things later. Handle them now. And I say that in all parts of our life, including in the congregation where you are, if somebody's teaching something that's wrong. It may be just slightly off or slightly wrong, but that makes it wrong. That makes it error. We need to go handle it at that point. Kind, gently, and teaching gently. And then the person can see what the truth is and come to it and keep on going. If they don't, we need to sever that problem completely, cut it off in the God-given way, follow his pattern, but handle things soon. I have seen situations where a problem like that was not handled quickly, and it grew and grew and grew until the congregation was split over it, divided the body of Christ over a problem that could have been handled gently and easily way back at the beginning. At the most, the hurt would have been of having to cut off one who was in error and refused to repent. That would have been it. But then when you get up here, now you've got splitting of congregations, whole groups of people going off into error and losing their souls. Maybe even all of both sides. That can happen too. Even all of both sides. Be careful. Handle problems when they come up. Don't do it like this man did, with flattery and then being ungracious. Be loving and kind to our brethren. Now we have the dispute at Beersheba, in chapter 26, verses 17 through 33, and specifically the strife over the wells. Now here Isaac gives tribute to his father Abraham because he's going through and naming these wells and giving the names they had before. He's honoring him by giving the names that he had given them originally. Well, problems come up. What about Isaac? He's peaceable, and he moves on. But he names the well Contention. That's what the name means, contention. Another well? Yep, another argument. Just almost could expect it to follow, couldn't you? And it does. He moves on. He's still a peaceful man, but he names this well Enmity or Hostility, changing the names to match what is happening currently. Well, when he moves on and he digs this next well, peace seems to be around him. And so he names it Plenty of Room or Broad Place. Nice, comfortable place. Finally, peace around me. He's a happy man. Again, we see Jehovah confirming his promises in verses 23 through 25. Well, here we come again. verses 26 through 33. A little close-knit party is coming up, and Isaac gives them a slight rebuke in this. Yeah, you folks have not been honest with me. Where is the hatred? Is it on my side? Is it on your side? Is it on both sides? No, it's on your side. He gives them a rebuke. And, of course, again, obviously, Jehovah is with Isaac. And they say, oh, we have sent you away in peace. That's stretching the truth way beyond reality, isn't it? They did not send him on in peace. Yeah, they made the initial attempt, but then what happened again? Dissension over one well and then another. They weren't really being sent on in peace, were they? No, not at all. But again, Isaac is a peaceable man, and he accepts peace. And of course, Jehovah blesses him with water in this well. In verses 34 and 35, we look at Esau's marriages. And what does he do? Esau marries Hittite women. These ungodly women are a grief to Isaac's family. Esau further demonstrates his lack of interest in spiritual matters in these marriages. The promises to Abraham seem to be absolutely nothing to this man. Is that not sad? It is so sad that this has happened. But this man just seems bound and determined to go forward and to be against everything that is religious, everything that would turn toward God and toward Jehovah and be right with him. Now we move into the fourth major section. It didn't take long to move through that third one, did it? But now we're moving into the fourth. That's chapter 27, beginning with verse 1 up through 37 and verse 1. First is the life of Jacob in his father's house. Chapter 27. Isaac sends Esau out hunting. Why? He wants one last of his favorite meals. And he wants to give Esau a blessing. Now you think about it. The man is getting toward the end of his life. He doesn't know when he's going to die, but he knows that it's going to come along fairly soon. And he says, I want one more of this very special thing in my life. I understand that one. I understand that thoroughly. There was a time when my father was growing old. It's just a little bit of reverse of this, but he used to fix fudge, a very special fudge recipe he had, and he fixed it once a year and shared it with many, many, many people. But that was a once a year happening. When my father got old, I went to him and I said, Father, just one more time. One more time. It had been years since he'd made it. He wasn't in business anymore. It had been years since he'd made it. I said, one more time, Father, I want some of your fudge. And he fixed it for me. I can understand the feeling that that we have here in Isaac. I can understand it so very much. Well, he sends him hunting. He wants that good food, and he wants then to bless this young man. He does want to bless him. But who's listening? And it seems that this girl is listening a lot, doesn't it, as we go through here? That Rebekah listens to a lot of things. So she instructs Jacob in her plan for him to receive the blessing. Now, he already has the birthright. Remember that? He has it. But now she wants to receive for him the blessing. Two different things. Now she wants the blessing for him also. This, my friends, is a lack of faith on her part. This is a lack of faith on her part. She thinks that she has to help Jehovah, doesn't she? She thinks that she has to help him. She doesn't have the faith that he has the capability of handling this part also. Well, Jacob just kind of naturally, he fears detection. Well, you see, his brother is hairy, and he's rather smooth. If he gets close enough to his father, the father can touch him here or on the neck or somewhere, and he knows this is not Esau. He would know it immediately. And so he is a little bit afraid of it, and that his father, Isaac, would curse him. Now, what does Rebekah say then? Let your curse be on me. Whoa, let your curse be on me. So she's going to have to increase her deception now. She's going to use Esau's clothing so it has the smell of his body. that the clothing smells like the older brother, and then that Jacob would also smell like him. And she places then these pelts on him where Isaac might touch him. And indeed we see that Isaac does indeed touch him. Well, Jacob carries out the plan. And he goes and pretends that he is Esau. Now then, as we know and we read it, not only is he deceiving him with his actions, but now he's going to actually verbally put out that he is the older brother. He is going to not just deceive, but outwardly lie to his father. Well, the deception comes complete. We see that in verses 21 through 26, and he does receive the blessing. He does receive the blessing. And what is it now? It's the prophecy, really, of his future, of Jacob's future. Well, in comes Esau. The plot is discovered. Too late. For the father says, I have blessed him, and he will remain blessed. In other words, his word is his word. His blessing is his blessing. It is not going to be changed. Well, what kind of reaction then do we have from Esau? Well, he's grieved. He's hurt deeply. Is there not even room in your heart for another blessing for me, is the idea? Can you not bless me also? Is there not one for me? Well, essentially, the blessing comes in this, that he will break the yoke of his brother. You see, in the blessing that went to Jacob, it said that his brethren would be his servants. But here now, he's giving Esau that way out, if you will. There will be a time when he breaks away from that bondage, when he moves away from being a servant to his brother. And so he gives him that blessing. Well, all these problems have really now led to hate. Esau hates Jacob, and that is so sad. So sad that he hates his own brother. Well, again, Rebekah's listening. Rebekah's listening, and she hears of this threat, and so she has to make plans for Jacob's safety. Now, she is pretending to send away Jacob on a very good premise, on something that is very good. And it would seem that her intentions are good, but really it's evil involved before it's all said and done. Her heart in this situation is not good. Well, she convinced Isaac that he should go away and seek his bride. And of course, Isaac calls for him and sends him with Jehovah's blessings. But again, Esau, he despises Isaac's wishes. And so what does he do? Really, in spite of what his father would have him do, or his mother is for that matter, what does he do? He marries Canaanite women, women of the land, those from those godless families. He's going to marry these ladies, and there's no way they're going to take him closer to Jehovah. There is no way that they would ever do this. All right, in chapter 28, verses 10 through 19, we see the vision of Jacob's ladder. And as I mentioned before, you notice that the angels are ascending and then descending. It's not that they're coming down from God and delivering blessings and then going back to Him. No, it's we are sending up messages to Him, our prayers, our adoration, our love, and then God is sending His providence back. That's the picture that we see with the ascending and then descending. Again, the promise of Abraham is confirmed, and this time to Jacob. We see this in 13 through 15. Jacob builds a pillar to mark this spot. He calls it the holy place, or the house of God. And that's exactly what the word Beth-El means. Beth, house, El, God. The house of God. Jacob is going to make a vow here now. Jehovah shall be his God, and he will give Jehovah a tenth of all he receives. That's quite a pledge, my friend. That's a very good pledge, as a matter of fact. He's saying, you will be my God, and I will give you a tenth of everything. It will be yours. Can you imagine the sacrifices that were made? The love that was shown toward Jehovah God through this man and through all of his family and everyone around. It just staggers my mind to think of all of the worship that went on in the giving of that, even that 10%, giving a tithe, if you will, as we would call it today. Well, we're going to have Jacob go up to Laban in Syria. We're going to have 2 marriages, well, just a short time apart, and we're going to see Jacob's many problems that are coming in this land. Many problems. He's going to be there 20 years, a long time for these wives. And so he goes in and he wants to know how Laban is well. Is he well? He asks the question. Or literally, is it peace with him? Is he at peace where he is now? Yes. Yes, he is. And then these people, these ladies are around the well, and he wants to know, well, why are you not out in the pasture? Why are you waiting here? And they say, well, we agreed to meet here to water the flocks. And it is on really a first come, first served basis, for the rock has to be moved from the well. Well, Jacob meets Rachel. And Rachel tells her father, Laban, and Laban then greets Jacob. Now, Jacob serves Laban 7 years for Rachel. 7 years. But he has 2 daughters. 2 daughters. Leah, the eldest, and then Rachel. Now, Leah's name means wild cow. And Rachel's name means ewe. That's E-W-E, ewe. It says that Leah's eyes are delicate or tender-eyed in some translation. Now that means that they were not sharp in their coloring. They weren't brilliant in their coloring. It's not that she had poor vision. That's not the point. They were just soft-colored eyes. You've seen it in people, and I've seen it in people, where the iris is really not sharp. And you've seen other people where they are very sharp and very striking eyes. Well, this girl does not have that. Hers are soft and if you will, almost even fuzzy in their colors. Well, he has agreed that he can have Rachel to wife, but Laban, what are we going to do with him? He is a deceiver from time to time to time to time, is he not? And so he deceives the man here and gives Leah to him. And he does not recognize it, of course, till morning. A big problem. He had expected to get a different bride than the one he had. And so he is complaining. Well, this is wrong. You cannot do this to me. Well, Jacob's going to receive Rachel, but under certain conditions. That he must fulfill Leah's week. In other words, spend a week with her in their honeymoon. That this is where he needs to be. And I would say rightfully so. This is his wife now, very definitely. She is his bride. And then, of course, Laban says, you can work another 7 years for Rachel. You see, back at that time, it was the custom that the older daughter was always given first. And we don't see it in our day everywhere in the world, but that was the custom back then. And so here it is. Here it is. And what else comes now, naturally, but seeds of trouble. Seeds of trouble. Jacob has 2 wives, and he loves Rachel more than Leah. Now, we've seen this problem come up when one child is loved more than another. We see it here when one wife is loved more than another. This multiple wives, this multiple families, it's not a good thing. It's not a good thing at all. And problems come from it constantly. Well, a lot of children are going to be coming along now. Quite a few. We're going to move rather quickly through some of this. Born to Leah then is Reuben, the firstborn. His name means look, a son. Secondly is Simeon. His name means hearing. Third, Levi. His name means attachment. And fourth, Judah, praised. Now, if you wrote those down and you look at them and you go back and you read through the text, you see that really matches the circumstances quite well. Then we find Rachel gives her handmaid Bilhah to Jacob. Leah stops bearing and gives her handmaid Zilpah to Jacob. It's really something else here, isn't it? We've got a lot of wives all of a sudden. I'm up to 4, if you're counting the same as I am. Well, who's born to Bilhah? 4 Rachel. Rachel takes them then as her own children, is the idea. First is Dan. His name means vindication. And Naphtali. His name means wrestling. Then to Zilpah, 4 Leah now. Gad is born. His name means a troop cometh, or luck. And then Asher, fortune, or blessed. And then we see Leah going out and hiring, really, Jacob from Rachel. Mandrakes. What are mandrakes? Well, they are something that had little yellow berries, and they were known as many times just simply as love apples. People felt that they promoted fertility. And so we have a little barter here, and Leah hires Jacob from Rachel. Born to her then, Leah, is Issachar. His name means reward or my hire. Certainly fits, doesn't it? 10th is Zebulun. His name means dwelling. And then along comes Dinah. We'll hear more about her later, the daughter. Vindication, again, is the name, just like Dan. Vindication. Born then to Rachel, finally getting to Rachel herself. God hears her prayers and opens her womb. Joseph, may he add. Oh, think this girl, she's had this one child, she wants more. May God add more to her. And then Benjamin, son of my right hand. Son of my right hand. Well, Jacob again bargains with Laban for his release. And Laban really does recognize, does he not, that Jacob has been worth something to him. He has been worth something to him. And so Jacob will separate the off-colored livestock and claim that all livestock from that point forward that are off-colored are going to be his. Well, Laban goes in and he separates the stock. He isn't even going to trust Jacob to do this. And then he takes those that are speckled and everything off in the distance. I'm not even going to let them breed for you. I'm going to take them away from you. Laban certainly shows himself in all of these actions. Well, Jacob resorts to human measures through here to assure success. And it would appear through here that they're working. But it's really God's providence. It's God's working in all of this. But we always try to help God along, don't we? It seems that we do. And then it says in the scripture, the man became exceedingly prosperous. In other words, he just simply burst out exceedingly, exceedingly. He becomes more and more and more prosperous. God is taking care of him. And we're going to see more providence then a little bit later, right in this situation, and then when he goes on home, we will see a lot of providence. But we're going to close at this time and come back in at chapter 31. Let's read, say, from chapter 28 to 35 for the next session. See you then.